What's up, Tim?
How are you, Zach?
Wonderful.
We live? We good?
We good.
All right. Well, welcome, everybody. We wanted to break up some of the boredom and start a conversation. One of the things that everybody seems to miss most as we communicate with one another online is how much we miss the interaction with one another. And I, for one, miss seeing everybody. And who better to have a conversation with than the one and the only Zach Miller.
Such a big occasion, I had to dress up for it.
And you're looking good.
Thanks.
Our roles have switched. I'm in the black T-shirt.
I read this article yesterday on the internet that dress shirt sales were up, but bottoms were not. So I had to basically go to a closet, find a dress shirt, since I don't frequently wear them, and figure out how to put this on. I had to figure out how to retie a tie. Actually, that's not true. This tie actually is always tied. I tied it once, and I just keep it tied. So it's super easy to just slip on back.
So what else are you doing to get by?
I think the key to a lot of this is to practice in good times, so that when bad times do happen, you're kind of already ready. And I know that's not necessarily what people want to hear right now. But really, it's go through a lot of challenges when things are really good, so that when times are different, you are more prepared for them, and so you're constantly trying to switch things up when things are good. And so I think for the last 30 months or so, I've really put a focus on something like that, where I can really be focused on controlling the effort that I want. Right? I've been saying this kind of quote for a little while now. It's like I control the efforts, not the conditions. Right? And I think you guys can't see it, but like there's a whiteboard behind me that literally says something like, "Oh, it's raining, it's snowing, it's windy, it's hot, it's cold," and it doesn't matter what season it is. Like there's always going to be some sort of like it's to something, right? The same thing goes for business. Oh, so and so, has a rich uncle. I don't have money, I don't have time, I don't have this. Like those are all excuses, right? And so throughout all of this, good or bad, there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers. And I think, it's you controlling your mind and you controlling the effort and realizing that it's the conditions you don't get to keep to create, but you do get to create the effort that you put into it. And if you're going to sit around and be negative all the time, I think we know what kind of lifestyle that's going to bring. But the guy behind me, The Rock, he had $7 to his name and turned that into the juggernaut that is the Rock's business. And so, I don't know about you, but I think The Rock looking down at you at all times is always a good omen, if you will.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's been from a Start Wheel perspective, we've had to retool a little bit, because a lot of everything that we did was centered around the consolidation and coordination of events. And with that consolidated calendar that everybody can go to, then all of a sudden we had the stay-at-home order in place, and we've had dozens and dozens of events that were then immediately postponed or canceled. And we're retooling now, and a lot of things are going online or being held with Zoom or Skype or whatever online platform that there is. So we're retooling that aspect. So be sure to, for the viewers out there, make sure that you stay connected with startwheel.org with our calendar as we follow the pattern with what everyone else is doing. But
what's interesting though is, as ridiculous of a statement as I'm about to make is potentially, it's 2020. If this would have happened in 2005, like from a technology perspective, we're really lucky that this happened when it did. Because we are able to see people in this kind of way. Like, I don't know when we're recording this via Skype, but Zoom definitely wasn't, around in '05. My guess is Skype was starting to come out around those times, and we definitely didn't have phones that, you know, you could FaceTime and things like that and communicate with people the way that you can now. And so we should be thankful that these things are happening in a time where we are able to communicate with people. I mean, imagine having to do all this without being able to do it. I think that we often think about the negative first, when really, like, it's like, hey, like, we are able to communicate like this. And what's astonishing to me is when people are like, oh my God, I can't believe this. It's like, we already live 11 hours a day plus on the media, on consuming content. Like, nothing really changes except for you going to work and complaining about that. Like, now you get to do that in your own home. Like, we should be positive about all this.
It's one of those things that the times have changed, and we have to embrace this virtual world that we live in. And the thing that's so, I really miss seeing everybody, and I didn't realize how much energy that I get from other people until we had to stay at home. And so yesterday we did a Zoom call, and just feeling the energy from the people that are on the Zoom call. I mean, that's really motivating, and people need to step out of the comfort zone of being behind their desk and learn how to get comfortable in front of the camera, because I don't know if things are going to go back. People may go back to their office, but in terms of the virtual meetings and virtual happy hours and coffee meetups, I mean, I think that's going to be here to stay, and it's something that we have to embrace and get comfortable with.
Interesting. So, what are you finding that people are nervous getting in front of a camera? Is it the same? Is that the same kind of nerves as like meeting someone the first time at a networking event?
I think that it's just the fact of it's so much easier to be behind the camera versus in front of the camera. Yeah, I bet if there was a poll out there that every Zoom meeting that took place, probably 90% of the people would have their cameras muted until they are forced to have the cameras turned on. So I think.
So you're saying you want me to live like this?
Yeah, just have your profile picture. But that's the interesting thing that Zoom with the virtual backgrounds, that they can you can have fun with that kind of stuff. It's a really, I was surprised how robust the platform was.
Interesting. What was that your first kind of learning about it yesterday, or? No,
we had it was an organizers meeting that we took
for Zoom, or for what?
For 1 Million Cups. So that since future meetings will be held via Zoom now, we wanted to make sure that we had a dry run and an understanding of how to shift between presenters and have slides and how you advance slides. And I was really impressed how robust it was, because it's a platform that most people are just hearing about for the first time, but there's it's like I said, very robust.
Zoom stock going up then, I guess.
Well,
maybe
as soon as they push out their security patch for, I guess there was a vulnerability exposed last night, but they'll get that patched, I'm sure.
So what's interesting is, when I think about entrepreneurship, I think about, certain words that are often thrown around, and anyone that's been in this for even a couple months should be hearing words like, pivot, creativity, figuring out real pain points and stuff like that. And so it shouldn't be shocking to people that these are the things that you have to go through, right? And the first thing I said was, constantly go through a bunch of challenges, because these are that's what entrepreneurship is. And
right.
Someone asked me recently, like, what do you think about all this? And I was like, well, I mean, when I'm thinking about truly like the innovation side of it, or the entrepreneurship side of it, I'm thinking about like, okay, like what are the nastiest scenarios that like someone goes through right now, right? And so many of us that are listening to this are having to stay home more than not, and when we do go out, we're more cognizant of when we have to touch something that might have been touched by something else, right? And so, putting a credit card into a machine, right? Opening potentially a door, and then signing something, right? And so are those the next three things that like fully get automated? I think smartphones being, 12, 15 years old, we're getting closer to those things being the payment piece of that. But there's a lot of businesses out there, like from a to-go or a delivery standpoint, that use the phone, that the delivery driver then says, oh, sign this on the phone.
Right.
Well, that's not sanitary. That's not clean. That's kind of disgusting if you really think about it. And so, if I were in a business from an innovation, hardware, software perspective at this point, like those would be the challenges that I would be thinking about and saying, hey, like,
Right.
how could I start building something like this, having conversations with these vendors, these businesses that are going through this, to be like, look, I appreciate that your delivery system is using cell phones. But the problem is I don't want to touch that other person's cell phone that's been
Sure.
wherever it's been.
And that's the part that concerns me. I mean, it doesn't necessarily scare me, but it concerns me in the sense of if there's two choices that people have. You can sit on the couch, watch the news, and become really, really depressed.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can look at the situation for what it is, and there's so much opportunity with chaos or whatever you want to call what's going on right now. There's so much opportunity that you can take advantage of right now. So many new problems that need to be solved. Or even someone like, as you and I both know, I'm a big fan of Tesla, but Tesla is totally retooling their the manufacturing plant right now so that they can optimize so when they go back online, they can produce better, faster cars in terms of a production standpoint. So take this time now, think about what it is that you always wanted to do, ways that you always wanted to do things better, and take advantage of this downtime now so that when things actually go back to whatever that new normal is, you can hit the ground running.
Yeah. What's interesting too is we've talked a little bit about the media and how that goes, and if you watch it forever, what that could potentially do to you. And what I think people don't recognize is how the media produces content, right? And so when you're in your car listening to the radio, your traditional news stations and stuff like that, they're of the assumption from their data points that people are not watching or binging like a Netflix, right? So when you're watching a Netflix, if you will, and this is just going to be like a how a content 101 piece of thing. So I have a journalism degree. I worked in media for several years, so I understand like how the breakdown is. And so they're under the understanding that people consume content in swings, meaning like a 20-minute swing, if you will, right? I don't know if that's the number, but it's roughly something like that. So if I'm in the car listening to the radio and I have a 22-minute commute, then that means minute 1 through 22 are roughly going to be a cycle. Then at minute 23, that recycles that song. So if you heard, the same song at minute 1 and 23, that's how long that cycle is. Now, some radio stations will obviously change what songs they play, but
Sure.
That's how the cycle goes. And so they realize that people aren't in front of a screen or listening 24/7, and so that's why you're hearing the same thing over and over again. So then if you consume content like that, like you would a Netflix binge,
Mm-hmm.
it could potentially overwhelm you, and you could think that, OMG, this is all I'm consuming over and over and over again. The same with social media and same, et cetera. And kudos to these companies to recognize that that's how people are consuming, right? As a marketer, that's what I want to see is how can I get people to consume this thing more, right? Netflix has now started creating content that is trying to get people to binge in that kind of cycle, right? So that the end of an episode before would be like, oh, tune in next week, where now they're like, we have to have something so exciting that you keep listening. And the average Netflix marathon viewing, which is what they want you to call it, not a binge, by the way, is over 3 hours. So if you're watching Netflix on a daily basis or whatever you are, like you're watching that kind of binging kind of way. And so be thinking about how you're actually consuming content as well, and how the actual distributor of that material is distributing content to you, because that can have a psyche on the mind as well, where
Sure.
most people have probably never thought of that. Most people have never really taken the time to really say, okay, well, how are they delivering the material to me? And why am I hearing the same thing over and over again? And the answer is simply because they know that you tune out.
And that's a great point, and that's something that from an entrepreneur standpoint, they need to understand that, and something that I mention a lot to the different people that I talk to. It's that if you're not tired of telling your story, then you haven't told it enough. And just because you feel like you are saying it over and over and over again, people are on these 21-minute cycles that you need to continue to share that story, share that message, share that post, whatever the case is, because it's amazing to me that even some of the people that I'm closest to, that I would think most certainly that they would have heard about an event or something that's taking place, that haven't seen it because everyone's busy and everyone's occupied in their world.
So I love to think, if you guys have questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. We'll get to them. If you are, I like to have people think about how they live their daily lives and use those examples to then use it for their own business. So what's a musician that you really like? Old Dominion?
I do like it.
Right, yeah. Right. And so you've listened to Old Dominion over the last, 5 years or so?
Sure.
Right. And when you saw them in concert, what, 3 months ago, roughly? 2 months ago, something like that?
Yeah, in January.
Okay. And they played a show. They played a show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they played a show in, let's just say, Cheyenne, Wyoming. Let's say that's where you went and saw them, in Cheyenne, Wyoming, right? So Tim Ryan goes to Cheyenne, Wyoming to watch Old Dominion play a show. When they go to play Reno, Nevada the next night, guess what they're doing?
Same show.
Playing the exact same show, right? So what I think most people don't recognize in this is that the content is the constant, and the variable is actually the audience. So when what you just said is, people don't recognize, even people that I'm close to, even people that I talk to on a regular basis, didn't even see this, because all too often the producer of that material, content, marketing, advertising, campaign, whatever, is actually changing the material too frequently, and the audience is also changing too frequently, that there isn't enough in the cycle for that repetition to actually hit. And so if you're a comedian, a musician, anyone on a rolling tour, maybe you're selling a book and you're on a book tour. It only took 20 minutes to get the plug in. You have to be thinking about the frequency that it takes for someone to see that material. And so I saw the last thing that I saw in person was Joe Coy, I think in January. He's a comedian. He's funny. The day before, or a few days before, he was in the Philippines doing a show. He gave that exact same show, roughly, that he did in Norfolk, to then the next day in DC as my guest, to then Baltimore, to New York, Philadelphia, whatever. Also, from a producer standpoint, the person who, or the business or brand that's creating or producing that material, you get more comfortable with it. So then you get better at it too. And so when people say, "Oh, I'm posting this too much," I get it. You think that you are, but really, from a data perspective, I would be willing to bet that most people are not actually seeing you. Yes, someone might scroll through, see you right here, and be like, "Oh, is that Zach Miller? Like, why isn't his hair spiked up? And what's with the jean jacket and the dress shirt and tie?" Like, you got to get that person's attention. And so, like, you're probably not posting enough. And so you need to get that message out there more frequently, more often. Maybe not the exact. I don't think we're saying don't post the exact same thing every single day, but how can you take a very similar concept and distribute it in many different ways to say something similar over and over and over and over again? And I think that's very important, and most people need to be thinking about that. Because the last thing you want is, let's say you're seeing a lot of emails right now that are coming out, and the person isn't actually saying what they need to say. And the person finally opened it, and they're wondering, well, can I go here? Can I buy this thing? Can I not? Like, I don't know. And that's because you haven't done a good enough job of saying what is necessary to get out. If you guys have questions, feel free to ask them in the comments, by the way.
So what else is going on, Zach? I'm just looking. It's nice to talk to somebody and see somebody. I leave my house to run. That's about it.
Yep, I go to the grocery store, and I'm training for my second Ironman race. So that, as of right now, is still on. Life goes on. I don't know that they'll cancel it or not, or postpone it or not. And even if they do, I'm not really going to change, right? Like, I'm right. Trying to progress forward and move forward. And I think that's something that, like, a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, this is like a break." no, this is a great opportunity to move forward and get ahead on stuff like that, right? And so, I hope that this event in a few months doesn't get canceled. But if it does, I'm not going to stop going after that thing, right? I'm going to re-sign up for it or figure out when that next date is and be more prepared for it. And I think that's important. But I don't know. I think communicating with people right now is really important too. And what's interesting is I started reading that people are saying that the wording social distancing is actually hurting because it's not the right word. Have you seen that?
I went for a walk yesterday with my wife, and I guess the new term is now like physically, it's something.
Physical distancing?
Something like that, yeah. Because social distancing is, like you said, is not the right word. That people are emotionally being affected by that. I don't know.
I also saw some people posting like, you shouldn't be that close to your significant other or your kids. It's like, you live in the same house. Like, it's how from a brand perspective, what's something that you have seen in your collateral or material from a brand that you subscribe to that you thought was really, really well done, and the opposite of that, which was really, really poorly done from a communication standpoint? What's something, whether it's on topic with the stuff that we're going through now or not, like what's something that you think has been good and bad?
Well, I think that, again, going back to, we have two choices with everything, and it's amazing to see how fast certain companies have come out with new methods for purchasing, either with delayed payments or with giving away something for free or not being able to generate 100% of the revenue that they could have, say, a month ago. So, for example, all of a sudden, it did not take long for all the car advertising that we see on TV, that all of them have 90 days deferred payments if you lose your job. So the companies that are able to react the fastest and adopt this new way are going to do really well, as opposed to the companies that are going to sit back and wait to see if there's some sort of bailout. I think that those are the ones that are going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I think that is really, really difficult as well is if you look at, so the whole purpose of what Start Wheel is to be that clearinghouse to better coordinate and better consolidate everything that's going on from the entrepreneurial community within Hampton Roads. And I think that we do a good job with that. But then on the flip side, you look at right now, everybody with this whole coronavirus situation, everybody is pushing out the exact same content, and it's just information overload right now, whereas we need to say, whether if it's the Hampton Roads Chamber or make some sort of decision who the authoritative voice is. Perhaps it's a Small Business Development Center. I don't know what the answer is, but everybody needs to look to them as the single source of information, because I'm sure your email inbox is just like mine, and it's just completely filled with virus updates from so many different people, and it's to the point now where I'm almost numb to any email that.
Is that because you don't know who to trust? You're getting so many, it's turning into Black Friday ad emails. What's your
all the above? Yeah, I mean, it's just so if there was one source that said, here's the latest and greatest, or maybe it's the SBA, and then the SBA, somebody channels that information locally from.
And I think, a lot of people are using the word the unprecedented times, and I get it. But the problem with that, and look, there's a lot of opportunities to capitalize on that from a brand, from a business, and stuff like that. But the challenge is when you start to consume material from people that are uninformed on a specific piece of material. It's very difficult to gather what's real and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's say there's a lot going on with disaster relief funds. There's multiples. Some banks are included. So here I am trying to explain even like what I am interpreting And I'm the first person to say, like, I really don't know what it's saying, but my understanding is saying that there are multiple banks involved. Sometimes there's not banks involved. Sometimes there's free money involved. Sometimes there's not. But really, I don't know. And so when you take it, even from a tax professional, a legal professional, a business professional, we don't know, right? And so I definitely grasp your point where it's like, you want to be able to provide your following, your viewers, educated information. But it's even hard for the person who's consuming the game of telephone to then relay that message out there. And then they might even be completely on point, and then they're actually talking about something else, and someone is thinking they're the same thing because it's through the SBA or whatever. And so they're like, oh, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. And the person that's providing the information is actually 100% factual, but the person who's consuming it actually thinks it's, disaster relief fund number 2, when that person's thinking about 1, and it's all over the place. And so, communication is difficult. And so, like, when people are asking me, I'm like, look, I don't know which one you're talking about. Here's what they're saying. You should go there. But also, I think that you should probably go after some of the funds because you never know what's going to happen. Right? You might be able to get some. Maybe there is free money out there. Free money, right? But it is a very difficult time, and it can be frustrating, I think, from people where they want to be informed, but they don't know who to trust. They don't know what to listen to, and then you have all these other people that are trying to grow their followings. And from the people trying to grow their followings perspective, I believe that, like, just be very cautious in what material you talk about that has nothing to do really with your brand that you're then starting to throw out there. Right? Like, for me, like, I'm a communications expert, and so if I'm going to market to someone and I'm going to talk about this stuff, I'm going to be talking about communication related things. You're not going to hear me sit there saying, oh, you should apply for that, even though I just did that. But, like, we want to be very cautious in, like, how we communicate with our customers, because we want to make sure that we're pulling in the right people, not a bunch of people that are like, oh, so you're an SBA expert on this stuff? No. That's not what I'm selling you. Right? I was just trying to help you. And so we can actually hurt our brands, I believe, by over-informing things that are off-brand.
Yeah, and I would be curious to know, at least from the people, the Start Wheel audience, I mean, do they look to Start Wheel for information about what's going on? Because I don't want to be another person that is just muddying the waters even more. So what I'm doing is pushing people back to the Small Business Development Center, the people that have been identified by the SBA as the ones that are in the know with the latest information.
Yeah, and definitely from a link perspective, the only links that I have sent people are definitely from the source, not a source of the source, if you will. And I think that can be it can be a challenge, and I think people I like your concept of one main source and people focusing on that, because I think it would help people more. Also, like, it would help people understand what really they're getting into. And to me, if there is going to be something in place that people are going to be asking about, you don't know the answer yet, you shouldn't be implying that you think this is the thing that's going to happen, because then this other person says, oh, well, so-and-so said this. Then the game of telephone goes on to 10,000 people, and then they're expecting one thing, another person's expecting another, and then the truth comes out because you just need a couple of days for it to unfold. It's a wild world. It is.
And go ahead.
So, from a life perspective, you've run 25,000 days in a row. What's the number?
I don't know.
Roughly over 2,000, right?
June 6th, 2014 was the start date.
And that's something. So you've been going after this thing, the Boston qualifier thing, for that entire time, basically?
Yes.
And so with the unknown in there now for you. So like with me, I told you the Iron Man, right? That's something like in a personal perspective. We all have personal things that are going on with this, right? I think some way more serious than others. How do you get by from an emotional standpoint with the unknown of what's going to happen when there's this thing that you've worked so hard on is now, potentially up in the air?
Sure. But your first question is 2,127 days in a row.
2-1 what?
2,127.
Have you run today?
I did. 6 miles this morning. But no, I mean, to get back to the second question is, I mean, really, I try to only focus on things that I can control. And I can't control the weather. I can't control what's going to happen in April of 2021. I just know that if I focus on the things that I can control, then that's the only outcome that I can dictate one way or the other. So my life is a whole lot easier and a lot less stressful with that mindset.
What are some of the things that and so I totally agree with that. We control the effort, not the conditions. What are some of the conversations that you're having with people in the community about, opportunities and things like this? Because, some of the best brands are created in downtimes, right? Or when people aren't expecting something. Like what are your words of wisdom? What are people talking about? I know you're talking to Hampton University students a little bit later, I think, or something like that. And like when they ask you the question, like, well, what do I do during these times? Or how do I build something in this time? Like, what do you say?
Yeah, I mean, that's just the whole thing in terms of there's so many new problems that are being uncovered right now, and these are the problems that we need to solve. I mean, granted, it's not a long-term solution, but I mean, you laugh at people fumbling around just on Zoom. I mean, they have no idea the organizers have no clue what's going on. I mean, you could have it would be a small-term business, but just to set up some instruction on how to properly use Zoom. I mean, you figure every teacher across the United States right now is trying to figure out how to conduct classes with their students, and talking to my kids with their Zoom classes with their teachers. Students have caught on to how to use Zoom a whole lot quicker than the teachers have.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that it's just that technology is just, they've been born with it. So it just comes so natural to them. A real quick side note, one of the funny things that I guess the students are doing is they're changing their screen name on Zoom to reloading ... so the teachers will see that and they think the students are there, but the teacher will not call on the student to answer the question. But kids are clever.
That's good.
Reconnecting, whatever. But no, there's so many new things. I mean, just as you said, I mean, delivery services. How do we invoice and exchange? What's a better way to exchange money? Who would have thought that Zoom would be doing what it's doing today, or even the makers of headsets, so that when you're on these Zoom calls and connected with Bluetooth, you can be walking around your entire house and at least have the audio still connected. It's amazing, all these different companies that are all doing really, really well and probably weren't prepared for the increase in sales based on how well they're doing now, based on timing is everything.
Yeah. It's one, and then I think, there really are two sides to this. There's the side that's let's just wait and see. Mm-hmm. And then there's the more aggressive side that's like, well, we're moving on. And generally, I think that you can look at those things and say there are going to be winners and losers out of this. And so the people that are more active in this than not, I find it very hard to believe that someone could sit back, do nothing for weeks, however long this is going to be, and think that branding will just magically reappear later on, right? And so like I know that a few months ago, hey Erica, what's up Stanley, Terry, Joey, and a bunch of others as well. Thanks for listening. If you guys have questions, let us know. Feel free to ask us anything. I know that back in October of last year, I told you about a documentary called Game Changers. And in Game Changers, it's a movie about how athletes go vegan and their results skyrocket. And it was a very popular documentary towards Q3 and Q4 of 2019. And because of that, I think a lot of vegetarian, plant-based, vegan-based lifestyles were created and started, myself included, right? Like I haven't had meat since the middle of November. I was actually with you the last time I had meat, right? Shout out to Dirty Buffalo. I miss you guys. And what's interesting is that they were on a huge uptick, right? Their stock went up. A lot of brand loyalty went up. Huge endorsements from big name athletes. And what's interesting right now is that I don't hear anything about that whatsoever. I don't hear anything about the plant-based movement whatsoever during this. Now, maybe I'm just missing it, but my guess is that these individuals that are in the plant-based world are not pushing the same way that they once were. And it will be very interesting to see when all this goes away, or this becomes the new normal,
Sure.
whatever, that are they going to capitalize on the stuff that they had been getting a huge upswing on, or are they going to fall back? And it's very interesting to me, right? And so, if you go to the grocery store, most of the time, I don't want to tell you guys my secrets in this, but most of the time, vegetarian-based things are not bought at the grocery store during disaster moments. So, like, go to the produce aisle, and I know what people are going to say. Well, the produce is there because it's going to go bad and all this stuff. Great. Thanks. More for me. Right? I can go there and get my green peppers if I want, right? Go get my lettuce, because all I eat is lettuce and green peppers now, apparently. But if you think about this, it's very interesting where some brands are capitalizing and some brands are doubling down. Some brands are marketing more, right? And so to me, as a guy that is an anomaly, is a marketer, is a communications dude, like, I think we need to be communicating more and more and more and more and more. Not sitting back being like, we'll wait and see how this goes.
Right.
Because how many people right now could you actually be pulling in on the plant-based lifestyle that are sitting there going, well, I can't buy meat anyway because it's not there. And I don't really want to be telling the world these things because I like that the stuff is there. But, like, these are the opportunities that I see in there that it's not like people are going to stop eating. Right? What are the things that you do in your day-to-day lives that there are potential holes in, and how can you be capitalizing on it? And I'm not seeing a lot like I was before. And so it's very interesting to me that people would be slowing down on something like this where they could be going. Right? What are the things that are constantly bought at the store? Milk, eggs, meat, potatoes. The only thing in there that's vegan is potatoes. And those seem to be there. So, like, there's an opportunity to grab a hold of a lot of people. And if you haven't watched it, it's the best documentary. It's one of the top 3 best documentaries I've ever seen. It's called The Game Changers. Like, I feel like there's an opportunity there for them to pull in people. And I don't know why they're not.
Right. Great point.
What else is going on? Why are you dressed like me today?
I didn't even know that I was until until we started this.
I know, I didn't say anything either. It's so great. I feel like I'm that guy from AC/DC.
Yeah.
So for a business, for a movement like startwheel.org to be so, I don't know what the word is, attached, loyal, so pulled in by events, physical events. what are you guys doing to roll with the punches, if you will, because so much of the brand was built off of other people's in-person events, if you will? What can someone do to stay, top of mind during stuff like this?
Yeah, and this is, I mean, and so that's one of the things that keeps me up at night, or that I'm thinking about as I'm getting my daily miles in out there running. So it's a lot of it is going to be, we may shift to doing more conversations like this because one of the things that makes Start Wheel special is that we are reflective of the community that you and I built, Zach. I mean, we've been out there for 8-9 years trying building the entrepreneurial community. So if we can't do it through events, then we're going to have to do it this way. And so anybody that wants to have a conversation like this, then let me know and we can do something like that. I'll open up my calendar that if somebody has questions or if they have ideas that they want to bounce off of somebody because they don't have someone close to them, jump on my calendar. We'll have a quick call and we can talk. But I want to make sure that we can keep that community aspect in place because we worked so long to build it that it would be that we can't take our foot off the accelerator.
And what's interesting with that is, while physical events are something that I absolutely adore, it's the first time you and I ever met was in person, and then I think you and I became closer friends via an event. Mm-hmm. I think they're extremely valuable into any community, and I can't wait till those things are back. At the same time, there's like the people who actually go to events is probably less than 10% of the people in a community anyway, right? So it's not like people weren't meeting outside of those things anyway. And so what would be some good ways for someone, if you guys in the comments have an answer too or a question, what can people do to meet other people that they normally would meet at an event? Like how does that work? Right? Like, I'm a big believer in just saying hello to people, right? So if engaging with people online, introducing myself to people, you introduced yourself to me. That was the first time through Rob Hedges. I remember that back in 2012. And, doing that little thing is something that I think is incredibly important, right? Like, just say hey, right?
Yeah.
But who do you say hi to? Where do you find them? And things like that, I think, is something that a lot of people have questions about.
Yeah, and I think that's the big, to me, the importance of events, it is being seen by other people so that you're on the forefront of people's minds. That is just as important than, and if not more important than, the content itself that's being exchanged for the purpose of the event. And we do business with the people that we know and like, and it's a matter of keeping that connection warm so that those business transactions and that deal flow continues to happen.
Yeah, we're talking with Tim Ryan of startwheel.org. Some people, I guess I shared this, and some people don't know who you are. So Tim Ryan is the executive director of startwheel.org. And this is his show, but I'm taking over because someone asked a question. I don't think he can see it. So, Erica, winner of Start Peninsula 18? Is that right?
17.
You sure? 17?
Yeah, it'll be 3 years.
Okay, so with Instant Teams, formerly a different name that I can't even think about at this point, Mad Skills, so check them out at Instant Teams. Is that right? Yeah. Muscle memory. See, that's what you need. You need that muscle memory, the frequency of those things to be reminded. Erica says, count me in. I can assist remote communications, policies, team culture, community, virtual events anytime. That's great. Erica, put something in the comments about like where people can find something generally about those topics. Is there maybe not just your website, but is there a page dedicated to stuff like that? Or maybe, Tim, you have her on the show to...
Yeah, and that was because when I saw that she popped on, that's another one. Erica's another one where timing is everything. I mean, they've been working with remote teleworking for a long, long time.
I think 40%. I asked her this number at one point, and this was like 2 years ago. I'd actually thought about starting a remote podcast when I started working from home because I thought it would just be fun. I never ended up doing it. I just stuck with the show that I did because I wanted to stay on the Zach Miller brand, and I didn't want to create a second brand. That's a totally different topic. But I had asked her because I knew that she was a remote expert in this world, where they bridge together people who have businesses that are looking, and if I butcher this, I apologize, that are looking for staff that is more remote-like and that has work that they can do together, and they bridge those people together. She would explain it way better than me. That's why she wants Start Peninsula. That's why they want Start Peninsula. But I got the gist out there. But I asked her about like how many people work remotely, and it was I think it was like multiple dozens of people, like 40% of people work remotely, which was very, very interesting to me. And even if it's 10%, that's still a crap ton of people. Right. That's interesting. So she says, count me in. So is there a link that you can share with us, Erica, on something like that? Or maybe she comes on and does a video like this with you, Tim. Maybe you can fill your days with all these videos. It'll be fun.
Right. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Stanley says, Zach and friend, which is you, Tim, what are some needs of the people right now during this time, and how can a small business capitalize on that question? I'll let you answer first.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I think that has been really neat, and I'm sure that has taken place all across America, but it is just the innovative way of thinking from like curbside delivery and pickup. I mean, that's been really, really neat to see. And I mean, we're in survival mode right now. And yeah, even from trying to keep people at home, if there was some sort of tool that was like, hey, I'm on my way to Kroger right now. Does anybody need something? There's got to be some sort of we have to force more collaboration to take place.
So Stanley is at least last time I talked to him, is a clothing designer. Mm-hmm. Now I'm gonna give my comment off of that, but he used to make bow ties, right? And so if I was him in this situation, and before, by the way, I would have done this. Mm-hmm. Show people how to tie a tie, right? Create content around that. Here are the different type of ties that you can do, right? You got a lot of gyms that are closed right now, right? And so you see a lot of athletes that are unable to go to gyms, right? If they're not working out outside, they are looking for things to do. And so you're seeing a lot of, I saw Whitney Duenas of Bear at the Bay, something like that.
Bar at the Bay.
Bar at the Bay, Bear at the Bay. See, I don't even know how to speak. And she had asked me a question like that, like what are some things I can do? And I'm like, start doing online classes, right? Start doing online coaching, right? Maybe do a video every single day that is a workout, right? And so think about how people from a frequency standpoint consume content, right? So if I was normally, if this was a normal day for me, right? Maybe I'm going to tune in to Colin Cowherd on the radio, right? Or maybe I'm going to watch him from 12 to 3 on Fox Sports 1. He's on every weekday from 12 to 3. At least he used to be, right? I'm assuming mm-hmm. he is, right? And so if you as a producer, as a content producer, can create content that is in a frequency that you can market towards, you can get people to start tuning in. And from that, you can create your own commercials in there that says, hey, if you want more one-on-one, or if you want more specific types of workouts, there's a way for you to capitalize and make money off of stuff like that. By looking at, this is where I think people do get wrong, right? So look at a brand that you enjoy to normally consume and figure out deep dive and dissect what they're really doing. So they're all creating and producing content, but they're creating it and producing it and delivering it at a time that they can market, right? I love wrestling. You got The Rock. Every Monday night is Monday Night Raw from 8 to 11 o'clock on the USA Network. That hasn't changed for a really long time. The Today Show was on every morning at 7 a.m. on NBC. That doesn't change, right? Your local news is on at, 5 a.m., noon, 5, 5:30, 6, 11 o'clock. That is a marketing opportunity for you as a brand, as a business, to say, okay, what at the heart do I do, right? I make ties. I am a fitness coach, a fitness trainer, and every day at 11 o'clock, Monday through Friday, Monday through Sunday, whatever it is, I'm going to do a 15-minute workout, and I'm going to teach people, and I'm going to have them consume my workouts, and I'm going to have them, number one, learn who I am, hopefully start to love you, right? And then they're going to start to share that information, and then they're going to want more out of you. And then when that happens, and you go, hey, by the way, if you guys wanted more catered, one-on-one, targeted workouts, I can give that to you. Simply in the comments, say that, say Whitney or Erica or Stanley or Zach or Tim in the comment, whatever your name is, and we can talk about how we can do that. Or if you want me to send you a tie, because I've been showing you how to tie all these different ties, right? Let me know in the comments, say tie, and I'll send, and we can talk about that, right? And here's the thing. You're basically consuming the same thing on the news every single day. You're basically consuming the same thing in sports every single day. Person scored a touchdown, right? Something bad in the world is happening. Something good in the world is happening, right? You're listening. You're seeing Zach in a black tee and jeans and a t-shirt every single day, right? Except for today where I dressed up for you, Tim, because I heard dress shirts were popular today. And I pulled out my tie from the garage. But think about, from a frequency standpoint, what you can do to start getting people to tune into your material each and every day, so that you become the brand that they want to consume and get there and then talk about, right? And so that's what media, that's what your traditional media has done so well that not a lot of people have actually adopted, right? One of my favorite YouTube shows is called First We Feast. And at 11 o'clock, when they're in season, every Thursday, Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m., they post a new piece of material. Because they broadcast it, they market it, they capitalize off of that to show them this material. Erica, you're not hijacking anything. These are great things. If I could figure out how to get a third person in here, I'd pull you in, but we're not. Right. I don't know how to do that. But think about how. And so actually one of the first things that you said earlier was people saying, "Oh, I'm posting the same content over and over again." Well, great. People already do that. Okay, so do it with a different color tie. Figure out fun ways to engage. Maybe you tell a different story with it, right? But yeah, push out. And the frequency doesn't have to be daily. It doesn't have to be weekday. It could be literally once a week, once a month. But just start doing it in a frequency that you can actually market towards, so that people can actually learn about you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in a matter of looking to see where the puck is going as opposed to where we are today, the whole Wayne Gretzky cliche. But I mean, things that come to my mind in terms of ties or bow ties or whatever. I mean, maybe if you have unused capacity, going out there. I mean, one of the jokes that nobody knows what day of the week it is anymore. Maybe you have
Wednesday
ties with the day of the week on it, and you wear it that particular day.
I don't know. Whatever. It's Thursday, actually. I was wrong.
Yeah, I don't even know anymore. But having some. I would assume if you're making products like that you know how to use some sort of a sewing machine. And I saw some news reports about just any clothing over the face is helpful. I mean, maybe you teach people how to turn their favorite T-shirt into a mask or something. But just being creative to think about where are we at today, but where are we going to be tomorrow, and how can we set ourselves up for tomorrow?
So I love that idea. What I would then encourage people to do with that is, sure, make the video that's in line with the things that are going on today in the world. But then very quickly, also create similar content that is not mask related, right? So then people don't just watch the video to learn how to make a mask, but then they also watch a video to see how to make, a t-shirt, how to tie-dye a shirt, how to tie a tie, how to whatever, right? But don't just do that one thing that is in line with the things that are doing today. And I think that's where so many brands go wrong, is they only talk about coronavirus. Oh, I'm gonna do this coronavirus mask post, and then nothing else.
I mean,
It's a
even
great
those
opportunity for you to then plug these other things
right. A
that you.
matching tie with a face mask, kind of thing. I mean, just something to get people talking.
But it's you have to produce, right? If
Yes.
you sit around on your sofa, your chair, whatever, and you just think,
Well, if you ever want
not
to,
enough.
and if you're afraid to step out and stand up to be that leader, I mean, it's amazing to me how my social media feed has been completely overtaken by the Tiger King. I mean, this guy, Joe Exotic or whatever his name is. I mean, this guy, he's a lunatic, but he was out there in front of and he built a following. So you can never be as crazy as these people are on this show. And it's just a matter of having the confidence to go out there and repetition, and look at them today. I haven't finished the series yet, so I don't know.
Bless
I
you,
don't know
Tim.
the outcome.
Oh God, how many episodes have you watched?
I think we have 2 left, I believe, but it's painful. But even during that, talk about timing being everything.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
who would be watching that right now if they weren't at home every day without anything to
people
do?
want to debate that, but like it's March Madness time. Like that's what people will be talking about, not Tiger King. But whatever. But you're right. Like ultimately he figured out that people wanted to touch cubs, right? He wanted to play with the baby cubs and built a business off of that, and then used that as a distribution channel and kept building and building and building. And so like what's amazing to me is the amount of money that these people were spending on this stuff. Like it's wild. Stanley says, so don't be one dimensional. As a question, and yeah, so don't be one dimensional, right? So be on brand, right? So if you are a maker of things, like if you're someone who normally makes pillows, right? You can shift your content and throw in some, hey, we're not going to make pillows today. We're going to show you how to make a mask, right? And then upsell, promote, be like, oh, and if you guys also, we normally make pillows. If you guys are interested in making throw pillows at home while you're bored, go watch this video or come back tomorrow when we make this video, and you sprinkle in some mask stuff, right? But don't just do mask stuff is my recommendation. Sure. from that, because I think if you only have content based on whatever the current thing is, and you're not able to pull off of that when it goes away, you're not able to continue your brand. You've built a brand off of that crisis moment or whatever that hot thing is, right? So imagine if I created business and all it is off of talking about Joe Exotic. All I do is talk about Tiger King, and then no one wants to talk about Tiger King anymore. I'm screwed, right? Right. I mean, Joe Exotic is going to go away at some point. I'm actually shocked
that it's lasted this long.
Right? I mean, the way that we consume material goes in waves, and it's just it, right? At the beginning of the year, right? Come end of January. Well, actually, here is this year, right? January was all about New Year's resolutions, right? That's what people are talking about, right? End of January, February is Kobe Bryant has passed. And then since then, it's basically been Corona. Those are the big 3 trends, right? And Corona and Tiger King. Those are the 4 things of this year, right? Of that, the only thing that I think people will talk about at a later time is really this virus, right? People will remember Kobe over time, sure. People will remember Tiger King, sure, and New Year's resolutions, things like that. But from a ongoing like thing that they remember more, I think it's the virus thing in there, because it had more worldwide attention than those other things, and that just happens in general.
Yeah.
What else is if people want to learn more about Startwheel and how they can get in touch with you and learn more about shows like this, like how can they do that?
Yeah, startwheel.org is our website URL. Startwheel is the handle for all the platforms that we're on. But the other aspect of Startwheel that everyone should know about is use us as a platform to amplify your message. So whatever accomplishments you have or success stories that you want to share, that we're also a platform for that as well. one of the big things that when we started was we wanted a way to consolidate events, but also everybody can agree that we do it. We, being the collective Hampton Roads, does a terrible job of telling our story. And so we're essentially a media outlet, if you will, to help share that story. And we're collecting that audience so that we don't want to have the best businesses in the area that no one has ever heard of. And we want to let other people have that awareness. So with our audience, so if they're looking for bow ties, that we have someone right in our backyard that they can purchase that from. So share your success stories with us so that we can share it out to our audience.
What's a business that you had no idea about that you learned about since doing this?
Gosh, it's like every day I learn about. I just learning about Stanley. Is he local?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one. But there's tons of businesses that do such great things that may not even have a local focus, that they do work outside for industries outside of this area. And
well, isn't it Lisa Sleep, the mattress company, is headquartered in Virginia Beach? Most people don't know that.
Yeah, that's another example.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, maybe 7-8 years ago, Smithfield Foods and AmeriGroup, I believe at the time it was called, two very large businesses that had started about 15 years before that. So like let's call it the early 90s, roughly like time frame, were being bought, and were being bought for billions of dollars. And a lot of the people didn't know that those businesses actually were here. Or were headquartered here in some kind of capacity. And then also the narrative was around the negativity of the fact that it was bad that they were being bought because those jobs potentially would be being lost. And I would push back and say, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner that starts a business, if in 15 years I could sell my business and market that I did it in Virginia Beach, Norfolk, that's a huge win. And that was the narrative that I thought was necessary to get out there. And it's just like, we're missing on this opportunity. We're being so negative around this when really it could be a very positive encounter, a very positive narrative and message that we could be talking about this, where you want businesses to come here. Well, shoot, you can start from zero and become $1 billion business in a decade and a half. Right. It's a huge win. Why wouldn't you want to do that?
Yeah. With sitting on the couch a few days ago watching Triple D, he had a
Triple D. I'm like, what? Diners, drive-ins, and dives with Guy Fieri.
Yeah, he had a hot dog place from Portsmouth that I had never heard of before, and it's just it's strange that there's all these places around this area that a lot of people have no idea they even exist.
Sure. Stanley says a one-stop shop, kind of. What does that mean? I guess he's asking the Start Wheel one-stop shop. Can you define what that means?
Well, it's a way that, because Zach, when you and I first started doing this 8 years ago, you were the first, and then I kind of was the Peninsula presence. Entrepreneurship wasn't as sexy as it was, and so
I jokingly say that like I made the word entrepreneurship or startup popular in this area, where like people frown upon me saying that, but it's like no, like before, like if you use the word entrepreneurship or startup, like people, that was a negative word, and I feel like I made it popular, so I'm going with it. Hey Dan, what's up?
It's one of those things where as it started gaining popularity, and certainly shows like Shark Tank helped along the way, but so then you had different localities then starting to jump on board, wanting to start their entrepreneurial efforts, and at the different universities and colleges wanted to start their individual efforts, and then you mix that with the SBDC and SBA, and there's all these great places to help entrepreneurs, but the space gets really, really crowded really, really fast. So then we're in a situation where people that want to start their business, they have to sift through all the different noise out there. So where when we first started, we didn't know if anyone was going to show up to an event. Well, now we have multiple events that are taking place on the same day at the same time. So how do we have a consolidated calendar so people can best decide where they need to use their time? And it's not a matter that we compete against one another. I don't want anyone to think that that's what I'm suggesting. But what I am saying is that we're competing against everyone else's time. So rather than having 3 events with 10 people, let's coordinate this together so we can have one event with 50 people.
Well, you guys did that, like Startwheel and Startup Night did a Startup Night with Start Peninsula. So it was kind of 3 things all in one, and that was what, like a month ago or something?
Well, that was right before the stay-at-home order was put in place. Yeah, but it was almost a month ago. That was my last outing.
Oh, that was it. But that was taking an idea, right, or an event, one event, and instead of just doing it that one thing, it was, partnering. I don't know if that's the right word, or having co-host all put on this thing together. And I think it's a great way to do that. And I would encourage more people to try to get creative like that, because if you can have more people potentially in the room, more people can, more fireworks can happen. I remember at the first Start Norfolk, which you were not at, correct?
I was not.
Okay, but you were at 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah,
something like that. I remember Kevin Curry, who great local leader as well in the business scene. He said something to me. I met him that day, that weekend for the first time too, and he said, it's interesting, we talk about this now because there have been some business communities across the country that were really starting to flourish as well. And he said something like, right now there's no overlap of events, but imagine the day when it starts to happen. And I think when that density of people started going into, at the time, downtown Norfolk, I thought you started to see some stuff like that. And you did start to see people have to pick and choose events. And, people will look at that as a negative. When I look at that, I'm like, well, that's a huge opportunity there too. Or it's a huge marketing thing now where it's like, hey, like, you don't just have one event to go to, like, you got to pick. And if there's a handful of events that you can go to, like, that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. And iron sharpens iron as well. So it's also good for the different organizers that they have to come up with great content, and they need to ensure that the time is valuable for those that are in attendance.
So that's interesting. So how would you define great content from an event perspective? Like if I'm an event organizer in a physical event or in a online event, how do I know that my material doesn't suck? How do I know that the people that potentially could come are going to see something that is produced that is good? How do I judge that?
Well, at least me personally, with the different events that I have put on, I always want there to be a mixture. I want new people to continue to. It's almost like website traffic. You want returning visitors, but you also want your unique visitors. So you want to make sure that you're building both of those audiences so that people continue to come back. And if you provide that good content, and if they're learning something, then they are going to continue to come back. And either through your marketing efforts or through their marketing efforts, they bring a friend or they tell a friend, and then you have new people. So that is... That's one of the ways that I measure.
And that's if you have an event that's frequent in that kind of way. And what's interesting is we talked about Startup Night. I don't do Startup Night anymore. Gary Locke of Past Zero has taken over it. But when I did it, our numbers were really interesting and kind of in line with that, where it was probably like, I'm a ballpark say some numbers out here. 25% new people, 25% would come every month. And then the sprinkle of the other 50% would be someone that would come like every 2 times or every quarter or something like that. And what's interesting, because you cannot expect someone to come to every single event. You can't expect someone to come to every single live feed. It just doesn't happen. People have other things that they have to do. And so I think and it doesn't mean that they are discouraged by your information either. It's just a normal piece, right? Just because, a new movie came out and you love the actor and you didn't see it the first day doesn't mean that you're not going to want to see it and you don't want to watch it, right? Maybe you just had something else out there, right? Look at Frozen 2, right? Like, a lot of people probably wanted to go see it the first weekend. They just couldn't get tickets. It's something similar, as silly as that. Star Wars back in the day, sometimes you just can't get there. You have other things to do. And so I think that's interesting to look at from a numbers perspective. What about the actual content perspective? Like, how do you know if you're doing a first time event? Like, how do you judge if your material is good or not? Because I think oftentimes your numbers might not be high, but it doesn't mean that your material sucks.
Yeah, it's one of those things too where you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And either sharing that content ahead of time with people that you trust that is going to give you that honest feedback, and if it sucks, they're going to tell you that it sucks. And then also having those people that you trust in the audience that tell you that what they learned was valuable, and you want to make sure that it's not a softball type of compliment that someone's just going to provide it to you for the sake of providing it to you. But
because it's easy to just be like, oh, that was good, and then the person never comes back. Yeah.
But for me, in some of the longer term type of success or feedback that I've received, to me, one of the biggest compliments that I have is when I see somebody at an event and they're like, oh, I met you before, you taught a class on this, or you talked about this. I took what you gave me and I started my business, and now this is what I'm doing. To me, there is no greater sense of satisfaction than hearing stories like that.
Yeah, I love stories like that. It's great to hear people use some advice that you give them for the good. Right, or maybe they take that advice and are able to do something incredible with it, or meet someone with it. It's an incredible feeling.
Yep.
What's something else that because we're in the lunch hour now? I think there's a bunch of new people in here. Like, what's the overall message that you want people to know right now about Start Wheel and in general about the craziness that is March and April of 2020?
Well, I think that it's easy to get caught up in the moment with everything that's going on. I have found I am much happier when I keep the TV off. So don't get caught up in the moment. And we are a community, and we need to come together as a community, and continue to leverage one another so that and keep our spirits high. And that's part of the whole. The magic about the entrepreneur community that we built was the fact that we're there to pick each other up when we're going through that downtime and celebrate during the times that need celebration. And if we can't do it on a face-to-face basis, then we need to come together on a virtual basis, and we need to keep the conversation flowing and keep pushing each other to help one another accomplish their goals, whatever they might be.
Yeah, and I would say if you continue to consume things that are going to negatively impact your day, you need to recognize that and start consuming positive income, positive resources that will help you, right? And so, I don't think we're saying exclusively get offline. We're not exclusively saying stop watching certain things in TV, but I do think we're saying don't consume it 24/7, right? Do other things. Get out of your house, get on a bike, run a little bit. Apparently that is still allowed. Read a book.
Go play golf.
Go play golf. That one's the weird one. Read a book. If you're interested in reading my book, Anomaly: How to Finally Stand Out from the Crowd, you can go on Amazon right now. The Kindle version is $1, less than $1. It's 99 cents. That's running for a little while. I don't even remember how long the promotion is going for. But if you have $1 and you want to read that book, you can do it, right? That'll be good things for you, right? Anomaly: How to Finally Stand Out from the Crowd. This is what it looks like. It only took a little bit of time to get that real plug in there. But do things that'll make you feel good. You probably have a ton of books on your bookshelf. Go read those, right? Consume material with people that is going to uplift you and make you positive. Because if not, I honestly feel like you could it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where you start believing a lot of the stuff that you're consuming,
Right.
when like you can really control a lot of it in a very positive way. And so, it's I'm actually reading my book every weekday, a chapter every day on my Facebook page, Zach Miller Says, and so you could listen to it there too. And it's like, do positive things, right? I think a lot of the stuff we've been saying here is very positive things, right? It's like, if you constantly see very negative things in your day-to-day life, you wouldn't want to hang out with that person. So don't do that, like, in the content that you consume too, right? Like, unfollow those people that are negative to your life, right? Like, don't watch the things or consume the things that'll be that are going to jeopardize your life and from being positive. And I think that's something that not enough people do. And you should hang out with people that are going to help you achieve the goals that you want in life.
Right. I mean, before this new normal even started, starting a business was extremely difficult to begin with. And now with adding the whole isolation factor, it's even more difficult than it ever was before. So you have to get out there and you have to find ways to surround yourself with those people that are going to lift you up and keep pushing you. You
also figure out like who is good at this stuff, right? And you'll find a lot of brands that do this stuff. Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys a couple of links that I want you guys to go to right now. Stanley asked, is Startwheel a free service? Yes, startwheel.org, so spelled out, startwheel.org is the website. If you guys are interested in free tips and tricks to your email inbox every Monday morning at 10:13 from me, Zach Miller, you can go to zachmillersays.com/newsletter to grab that. Also, I just said that if you go onto Kindle, if you grab a Kindle version of Anomaly at Amazon, it's less than $1 right now. I'm also reading every chapter on my Facebook page, facebook.com/ZachMillerSays, every weekday morning at some point. I don't know exactly what time I do it. It's whenever my hair looks great. That's when I decide, I'm like, hey, let's do it. So you guys can listen to that as well. Chase says, two of my favorite people's in one quote unquote room. We're actually in the same room right now, Chase. He's over there and I'm right here, and it's working out. Daniel Gerard says, people come based on perceived value, based on the limited time they have. And Stanley also says, like an Amazon for locals with startwheel.org. Is that, I would say, yeah, I think in what he's trying to say, I think that's it.
Sure.
Daniel also says, by the way, Daniel, I think we rode past each other on a bike. Were you in Chesapeake on Saturday last week? Because I swear you look like this guy that I rode past on the Great Dismal Swamp Trail. I don't know. That's a random statement. But I didn't see your Strava update, so I don't know. In a nutshell, he says, how does Startwheel help a startup in a small business that has been operating for trace years or more? Tim, I'll let you take that question.
Yeah, I don't know. For 3 years or more, so we also have a resource tab where if you need help from someone that has more knowledge than you, then you can find somebody. You can do a search looking for that person or mentor. So that's a big aspect. That you can find somebody that way. You always can reach out to me. I'm more than happy to provide any introductions if I should know that person. If you have a press release of some kind that you want to share your message, then we can do that as well.
Is there any filtering of that?
What's that?
Is there any filtering of that? Like anything goes? Like, are you guys looking for something very specific? Is there a template, a rubric? Like, can any business get a press release out there? How does that work?
Well, so we're rethinking all of that right now in terms of, we're certainly there for the early stage startup and small businesses that perhaps if for them it would be free for them. We're not looking for like a hardcore selling kind of message, but if you just had a contract win for that your product is going to be featured in Costco or Walmart or something like that, then sure, that we can share that kind of thing. But
so like the safety nailer guys recently being on Shark Tank.
Yeah. Those type of success stories, we will help out that way. We push out 2 newsletters a month And the newsletters are really designed to be quick reads. So it features events that are going to be taking place in the next couple of weeks.
Online or
and
off.
Also online or off. And the other aspect is sharing the news headlines of the success stories that the different businesses had over the past couple of weeks. So we aggregate through different news channels and share that out as well.
Very cool. Very cool. So you guys are interested in that, startwheel.org/newsletter. How do they get that?
I know there's a you can subscribe going to startwheel.org.
Just go to startwheel.org. Dan Gerard says, no, sorry. He did not cross me on the bike path. Well, then you have a doppelganger.
I'm glad to see Dan out there on his bike again.
Yeah, it's great. What have we missed? Like, what's like, we're looking at this stuff. I think a lot of people are looking for guidance because we've never gone through something like this before. But at the same time, I would say I think we go through it every day, right? I think we go through challenges every single day, right? There's a ton of unknowns. There's a ton of things that are always in limbo, and this is just another one of them, right? And so if you push forth the effort, I think good things will happen. I think if you sit back and wait and hope that other things happen, I don't think as positive things will happen and stuff like that. And so I think you have to you really control your narrative, really control your effort, and push because we're constantly
add to that, Zach. Right now, everything's crazy. The world is bananas, and
BANANAS.
That's right. You can't be afraid to fail. Now more than ever, you can't be afraid to fail. So build a little, test a little. If it works, keep going with it. If it doesn't work, figure out what didn't work. But you can't be afraid to fail, because if you're not failing, then you're not trying hard enough.
Nick Sutton says using a service like Constant Contact for that, I guess, is you guys use MailChimp, I think, though, right?
We do, yeah. We use MailChimp, but the big thing for different businesses, our audience is composed of people that support entrepreneurship, and so someone like Nick, our audience would be bigger and broader than Nick's, whereas Nick's would be more focused on what he does. But it's a great way to spread the word out for what you're doing.
Stanley says, here's a question that's probably off topic, but should you charge for everything you do, especially now? You want me to answer that, or you want to take it?
Well, my quick answer would be, I think that right now everyone is in survival mode, and they realize that the status of people's jobs is uncertain right now. They don't know if they're going to get furloughed, what's going to happen to them. So I think that people are being really, really cautious how they spend, and one in the hand is worth two in the bush kind of thing, that you may have to give some things away, or at least, if not for free, that at a discounted rate, until this storm passes. But
at the same time, I would say it's not like people are this is a generalized statement. People are still spending money, right?
Sure,
people still have their Netflix account. People are still going to the grocery store. People are still paying their mortgage. People are waiting a half an hour to get Chick-fil-A through the drive-thru. They always do that, right? And so I said this earlier in the recording. Like, people spend money, right? People look at other brands that are charging, right? When they find people that want that thing from an entertainment perspective, right? Sometimes food is entertainment. They want it because they need it, right? There are absolutely things out there to charge for, and I can understand where some people are saying, do I not charge for this other thing? It's easier to lower the price than it is to raise it. What I would say is to make sure that you're not going to hurt yourself or your business by giving away something that people would value and pay for, just because you're too afraid to do it. You're too afraid. And I think that's what it ultimately gets down to, right? People are too afraid to see, does someone value this thing that I made, good times or not? And so they say, well, I'd rather give it away for free because it's easier. But again, Chick-fil-A, what's the average Chick-fil-A order? Probably $7 per person, right? What's the average grocery store bill, right? probably $60 of family, right? And so I think you have to look at things and say, do I just give this away for free to give it away? I don't think so. I think there are things that you can deliver to people to learn about you, but I don't think that you should start giving away your core service to give it away, right? And a lot of times these big businesses, there are businesses that are out there that are providing things out there, and it's a beautiful thing. But most of the businesses that I think that are listening to this cannot sit there and give out the same thing that, like, I just saw that, like, the New England Patriots are giving 1.2 million masks. They're flying to China and back with 1.2 million masks. I'm sorry, I do not have the availability to do that in any kind of capacity. Right. So for me to look at that and say I should do that myself, I think is going to become a disaster on myself and my business, my family, and my friends, right? But is there something that you can do in there, like show people how to make a mask by something that you do that could be valuable in there, and then they become accustomed to your brand, and then you can sell them something else because those who do value you can buy from. So I just be very careful on giving away too many things for no money that ends up actually causing even more of a disaster in your day-to-day life.
Right, especially if you're exchanging dollars for hours. If it's something that's scalable, like SiriusXM right now, it's free listening now until May 15th, I believe is what it is. Okay. Well, that doesn't cost them anything because it's just a broadcast and they're pushing out that service.
So Nick says, here's one of my dilemmas. So actually, let me finish Stanley has a follow up to that. So I'll get to that first. What if something's new you're trying? Should you charge for it? Yes, you should charge for it. Simple as that. Like, why wouldn't you charge for that? Would you go to the McDonald's? Would you go to Chick-fil-A? Would you go to Walmart and then check out and be like, never mind, I don't want to pay for this, but I still want you to give it? It's in your mind, right? You're not valuing your service, product, whatever, the way that someone else potentially could, and that's why you need to charge for it. It's in your mind that thing is not valuable enough, and until you get that out of your mind, it won't change. Nick says, here is one of my dilemmas. Obviously, my business is taking a huge hit. He has Digital Lens Rental, which they rent photography equipment for photographers. You guys can check them out at digitallensrental.com and on the internet. Hit just like everyone else. Since my business is pretty much B2B, a lot of people lost their business. Thoughts of offering some sort of promotion that might be extreme to keep revenue in. Example, dollar for dollar match for gift cards, buy 50, get 100. Our service obviously isn't required like Chick-fil-A. At the same time, I think that, great question, Nick. What I would recommend Nick to do in this kind of case is to think about, okay, well, it's likely that his business, once all this goes around, is going to come back, right? And so what can you do to keep cash flow flowing at this point to keep things going? So if you guys can notice, I haven't had a haircut in a while, and apparently now I won't get another haircut for 71 days or so, right? And so what I'm seeing someone like my barbershop doing, right, which is B2C, I get it, but they are offering, if you spend $100 and buy a gift card, Anchorage Barbershop off of Volvo Parkway in Chesapeake, check them out. They do great hair. Woo! They're saying buy $100, get $25 in free, and use it, whenever. You could do something like that. I don't know that you have to do something as extreme as 50 for 50, right? When you could do something that's 100 for 25 or 100 for 10 or something like that. What I also recommend people to be thinking about in this is I know that things are tough, but be cautious in how desperate your messaging comes across, that you actually will not get those funds come in because people don't know if they will actually ever be able to fulfill them. Because I think that there was 2-3 weeks ago, there was messages coming out from people like, we're going to close unless you guys buy our gift cards. And we were only a day or two into that. And so just in the words alone of that, I think we have to be very cautious in what we say. And so I want all these businesses to survive, to then thrive again. But you have to be very careful in your communications with people that you're not articulating a message that says, give me your money and I'm going to close in a couple weeks anyway. And I think there are brands out there that are delivering a message like that, and it's actually going to hurt them rather than help them. And so figure out a way that you can deliver a same the dollar for dollar match or something a little bit less than that, right? I don't think you have to be at that extreme right now, right? Maybe you do. I don't know the ins and outs of the business, right? But don't also kill your business by then giving away so much of it at a later time too. So then also pair this with like your normal margins to make sure that you can even do that, right? Because you don't want to give away and be like, hey, I just gave you this when my margins were already razor thin, and I can't do that. Right. I think that's actually probably potentially why you're seeing a lot of family meals going in, because you're seeing that delivery, and paper products are expensive. And most consumers don't realize that if you could do family style stuff, you might have these businesses that are doing it that way because they're trying to save on their margins, and a normal consumer doesn't realize that. But they're actually doing it that way because they realize that, that extra dollar adds up times 100 orders. Well, they only made $100 a day anyway. That could be there. I don't know the ins and outs of every business like that, but just be careful that, number one, your numbers can work. Number two, that you don't even just ask these people like, hey, we're going to give you this offer right now. If there's anything that you want in the future, you're going to be able to use it. We fully intend to stay open during all of this. And, don't worry. I would be very cautious in the desperation messaging, though, because I don't think it's actually working, even though you see people share it and like it and crap like that, right? Just because someone shares something on Facebook does not mean that they bought it.
Yeah, I think that the question that Nick had, I 100% agree with you, Zach. That, I mean, this is knowing what your numbers are and knowing what your break even is and knowing what you can afford to discount is key. But then, having some sort of bundled package, there could be dozens of people that want to go into the photography business, but they've never had the opportunity. Maybe they're laid off right now, and Nick, you have some sort of package where you get, this camera body, this lens, and a light package for whatever, and I'll give you a half an hour lesson on how to do this.
Well, it's funny because he just said this. Oh, you just pinged an idea in my brain. Buy a gift card for a service. Buy a gift card, get a service lens calibration, which is something he does, for free. So it's really not costing him anything, but it's time to calibrate that, but could also bring in some revenue, right? Yeah. Or it could be, hey, you get that time with him. Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant.
And the other thing that I would look at too is this is a great time to go through your client list or your customer base, find out who your best customers are, and maybe you reach out to them and say, hey, we appreciate you. We have, during this time, we're offering you something extra special because...
Or something that has nothing to do with money, right? So I am trying to go through my Rolodex. I am going through my entire Rolodex of business people that have ever bought from me, my business. They bought my book, or they've done something for me through Hatch or whatever. And I literally, but 6 feet apart, obviously, right? And I'm literally calling all these people, and because I feel like it has to be done by phone. And I'm just saying, hey, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your business over the years, right? And that's it. And I think that at least starts a conversation too. And then it's not like, hey, thank you. Now buy 50,000 of my tacos, right? And I think all too often people are not even doing that. They're just like, hey, I'm going to post this thing on Facebook and hopefully it works. When it's like, hold on, let's actually think about the people. So Nick, let's say you have 1,000 customers. Have you called your 1,000 customers and just said, hey, thanks for your business over the years? And by the way, this thing that we're telling you is bulletproof through good and bad times. You should be constantly be doing this, right? Like I remember when we did the first Start Norfolk. I had to individually invite every single person. And people are like, that's so extreme. I'm like, well, how do you think I got 200 people there? It's what you have to do. You have to constantly do these things. So Stanley says, yeah, it's like a thank you note, but verbal. Yeah. But also send the thank you note, right? You can go, and if you don't want to go to the post office, you can go on you can go USPS.com/stamps, my favorite website in the world, and buy some stamps. They'll deliver them to you in a couple of days. You pay an extra $1 for them. and then send the stuff out. Like, don't be lazy during this time and just post, hey, I'm desperate, please buy my thing. Because in 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever, when this whole thing goes away and you still aren't doing the stuff that you should have been doing, you have all this. All these opportunities right now to really to establish and reinforce relationships with people. And I think a lot of people miss out on that in the good and in the bad times. So if you guys are interested in Startwheel, check them out at startwheel.org. Tim is the executive director there. And he's wearing a black t-shirt today. Is it just a black tee or is there something on it? SpaceX, there you go. Stop watching all the news all the time. Watch it be informed, understand what's going on. Don't just scroll for hours, do something good with it. Read some books, read my book. Do positive things in your world. If you're in a situation where you've been wanting to work out and lose weight or get fitter, like, get outside and start running. Like, this is a great opportunity. If you want to stop eating meat, like, go watch Game Changers. Like, this is not a hall pass right now, right? This is not a time where you can just like sit around and be like, This is a great opportunity to win and capitalize and get ahead, right? Like, you've been hoping and praying for these opportunities, and it's here, right? Maybe not in the way that you wanted it to. Maybe it is very stressful, but this is a great opportunity for many people to get ahead in their businesses and do things that they never thought were possible because they have more eyeballs potentially on them than ever before. And I want to also state in that obviously what we're going through is a very serious time, and I'm not diminishing any of that stuff.
Sure.
But if all you do is sit and watch 24 hours of the same thing telling you all these really bad things are going to happen to you, and you don't focus on the things that you can control, which is your effort, you're missing out on an opportunity. Nick says he hopes that Boston Marathon gets canceled. Oh, isn't canceled. Is canceled. I hope that the Boston Marathon isn't canceled. The good thing is Tim doesn't have to run it until 2021.
That's right.
So he should be good. What you really should be saying, Nick, is that you hope my Ironman race on June 14th isn't canceled, which is probably going to be canceled. It's not the end of the world. Whatever.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Tim, for inviting me on to the Startwheel.
Yeah, this is fun. If people found this beneficial, we could probably, over the course of this conversation, we could probably segment this up. We passed on a lot of valuable business information and tips that...
we should call this Startwheel Sessions.
Startwheel Sessions.
Double S.
Yeah, we'd happy to do this as often as people find this of value to them. And if you want to be on something like this, let me know.
Yeah, raise your damn hand, people. Raise your damn hand. I'm not getting a haircut until my race. This thing is gonna keep growing. I'm gonna grow it out like someone with long hair. Stanley says very beneficial. Some lady named Tari Ryan says heart. Thanks, Tari Ryan, for that. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys think that I should start wearing more outfits like this.
You almost look like Jim from The Office.
We should have recorded this yesterday, because then it would have been an April Fool's Day joke, and it would have been perfect. Would have been better if I could just rip it off, but no. Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. Follow me at Zach Miller Says everywhere on the internet. And if you guys want a copy of my book, check it out, zachmillersays.com/anomaly. Zach, the Bangs Miller. If you guys haven't listened to it yet, read it yet, check it out. Tim, startwheel.org.
Yep.
Sign us off.
Awesome. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be in touch soon. Until next time. Peace.
Peace and pancakes, y'all.